to stop the panic and make it go away by taking killers off the streets. All the MPD theories about the killer seemed to be going nowhere, or at least Bree thought so. The facial image from the video had no match in the FBI's terrorist screening database. The voice print had been contracted out to the same agency that worked with the Bureau on Osama bin Laden's recordings after 9/11. So far, no luck there either. But it was too soon to expect much. Also, the killer hadn't identified himself with any jihad or cell, and no one had stepped up with information about him after seeing on repeated news broadcasts still pictures made by spectators of the murder. Bree shared every shred of information with the feds, but she also continued her own investigation. That meant 16-hour days for her. On Thursday evening, I stopped by her office, hoping to coax her out for a bite to eat. The MPD's Violent Crimes Unit is fairly inconspicuous, located behind an ordinary-looking strip mall in Southeast. There's more than enough parking, though, which some cops joke is the real reason everybody wants to work there. It just could be. I found Bree's cube empty. The computer was still on, with a yellow sticky note on the monitor that said, "Call Alex," in Bree's handwriting. I hadn't heard from her, though. Not all day. So what was she up to now? "You looking for Bree?" The detective from the next cubicle gestured with his half-eaten sub. "Try the conference room. Down that hallway to your left. She's been camping out in there." When I entered the room, Bree was sitting with her feet up and a remote in one hand, scratching her head with the other. The killer's video was playing on the television. Open files, pages of notes, and crime scene photos were spread out everywhere. And still, just seeing her there turned me on more than I cared to admit. "Hey, you! What time is it?" she called when she spotted me hovering across the room. I closed the door before kissing her hello a couple of times. "Dinner time, break time. You hungry?" "Starved, actually. Just watch this with me a few more times. I'm going cross-eyed in here by myself." I was happy to help out, and then not terribly surprised when a few more times became dozens of viewings, and dinner at Kincaid's turned into take-out empanadas from around the corner. The grisly murder tape from the Riverwalk never got any easier to watch. Neither did hearing my name spoken on it. I compensated by lasering in on the killer. Maybe there was some nuance of his speech or behavior, something nobody had noticed yet. I knew this exercise wasn't about giant leaps right now. It was about making small connections. Like Tess Olson being a crime writer. Or maybe even the Hallmark greeting cards I'd noticed in the apartment. The killer's need for an audience. So it surprised us both a few minutes later when we found something important, something that might be huge. Chapter 20. It started out as a barely discernible flash, something almost subliminal in the static just before the second half of the tape began. Bree and I had been staring so much at what the killer wanted us to see, we hadn't really looked anywhere else. "Hold it a second," I said. I picked up the remote and rewound the tape a bit, then froze it. "There," I said to Bree. "See it?" It was almost nothing. More like the suggestion of an image. Almost too fast for the human eye, or even the slow-motion feature on the VCR. A ghost is what it was. A clue. Left there on purpose? "This tape's been used before," I said. Bree was already putting on her shoes, which were size 10 black flats. "You know anyone at the cyber unit over at the Bureau?" she blurted out. The police department relied heavily on the FBI for video forensics assistance. I knew a few names over there, but it was now 9 o'clock at night. That didn't seem to matter to Bree, who was up out of her seat and pacing. She finally picked up the phone herself. "Let me try Wendy Timmerman. She works late." I raised my eyebrows at her. Wendy Timmerman works late? Someone's been paying attention. Wendy was ostensibly an office manager for the department, but she was also something of a secret weapon for anyone who wanted to bend the rules a little without breaking the law. She knew everyone, and everyone, it seemed, owed her one kind of favor or another. Plus, she had no life. She practically lived at her desk. Sure enough, Wendy talked for a couple of minutes to Bree, then called back with a name and number. "Felix Bender," Bree said, hanging up. "Lives over in Adams Morgan. Supposed to be a genius at this stuff. I guess he moonlights out of his apartment, but Wendy said bring him a six-pack, and we'll be admitted to his lair in a flash. Hey, remind me to send Wendy some flowers." "Don't bother," I said. "She'll call you when she wants a favor. It'll be more than some flowers." Chapter 21. As Wendy Timmerman had suggested we should, we stopped at a convenience store on our way over to the Adams Morgan neighborhood. We sneaked a couple of tantalizing kisses in the store, then in the car, but now we were on our way again. Back to business, damn it. Felix Bender, who seemed closer to Damon's age than my own, was friendly enough and let us right in when I showed him the beer. I had my doubts about the boy genius label until I saw his home set up. The small apartment, laboratory, lair, whatever, barely had room for furniture. I wondered if any of the expensive equipment piled everywhere had been pilfered from the bureau. We sat on mismatched kitchen chairs for a few hours, drinking the second six-pack we'd brought, while Felix worked in the other room. Sooner than I expected, he called us in to look at what he had found. "Here's the scoopy-doopy-doo. There wasn't much more than shadow images on the underlying track, so I captured everything I could, then digitized it. I'm assuming you won't mind a composite of the deinterlaced frames?" "I guess it depends," Bree said. "On what?" "On what the hell you just said, Felix the cat. You speak English? Or maybe Spanish? My Spanish is serviceable." Felix smiled at Bree. "Well, here you go. Take a look for yourselves. I can always break it back down if you want." He tapped out a few more commands. "It's printing now, but you can see it here. Take a good look at this." We leaned close to watch one of the small monitors in a tower of gadgetry stacked on his desk. The image was indeed shadowy, more dark than light, but still discernible. In fact, it was immediately familiar to both of us. "Holy shit," Bree said under her breath. "Suddenly it all becomes clear as mud." "Isn't that Abu Ghraib?" Felix asked from where he was stationed behind us. "It is, right?" The Abu Ghraib prison scandal in Iraq was some years old now, but was still a sore spot in a lot of Washington circles, and elsewhere, of course. Apparently with the Riverwalk killer as well. The image was either a still photo or a news video capture. It didn't really matter which at this point. Whatever details were unclear, I could pretty much fill in from memory. A female American soldier stood in a wide, cell-lined corridor. On the floor at her feet was a hooded, naked Iraqi prisoner. The man was on all fours, just as Tess Olson had been. Around his neck was a dog collar attached to a leash, which the soldier held. Bree's eyes stayed locked onto the image, and she slowly shook her head back and forth. "So, Felix, you keep any coffee in that tiny kitchen, or should I go pick some up?" Chapter 22.
The killer's second story was one of his favorite genres, science fiction. Oh yes, this was delicious. The plan was working just right so far. The killer wasn't playing the Iraqi soldier anymore, but this was a better story, and a much juicier role for him. Dr. Xander Swift. What actor wouldn't kill for the part, so to speak, and to do this particular scene? In the theater of all places. Delicioso. The sidewalk in front of the august Kennedy Center was quickly filling with people that night. The crowd was mostly young, urban eclectic, confident, slightly obnoxious. Just about what you'd expect at a science fiction stage adaptation of a short story, already once turned into a Hollywood movie. The difference was that the play had a big star actor in it, thus the sizable crowd, though it wasn't quite a sellout. The killer, who wasn't a star himself, not yet anyway, assumed his role as Dr. Xander Swift as he approached the Kennedy Center. It was never too early to get into a part, was it? A row of 6 swinging doors opened from the street onto a tiled ticketing area. Then 4 interior doors led farther into the theater's carpeted lobby. He noticed everything and wouldn't forget a single detail. Almost believing that he was Dr. Xander Swift now, getting more deeply into the role, the killer moved no more quickly or slowly than the crowd surrounding him. Thick-tinted glasses, a gray-flecked beard, and an unassuming tweed jacket helped to keep him undetected. Just another theater lover, he was thinking. Still, he couldn't help having the slightest doubt about the rehearsal. What if he blew it? What if somehow he was captured tonight? What if he made a mistake at the Kennedy Center? His eyes loitered, taking in a metallic silver poster in a glass case as he passed. Matthew J. Walker in We Can Remember It For You Wholesale. The hot-shit Hollywood actor with his name in black type above the title was known for shoddily made but highly successful films. Absurd live-action comic books that cheated the customers out of $10. He was the sole reason for the nearly sold-out performance tonight. Women especially loved Matthew J. Walker, even though he'd recently married a beautiful actress, with whom he'd adopted children from third-world countries, the latest Follywood trend. They were living in Washington now, so that they could influence the government on matters important to the children of the world. Did some people really talk and, worse, think like that? Yes, indeed, they did. Inside the auditorium, synthesizer music set the tone for the evening. Dr. Xander Swift easily found his seat, 11A, on the far left aisle. He was definitely getting into the part. Good stuff, and very well played if he did say so himself. He was positioned only steps from one of the 4 illuminated fire exits, but almost immediately the location was irrelevant to him. He knew instantly that he would not be using the ticket he'd already bought for the same seat on Saturday night. This was the wrong vantage point. All wrong. Dr. Swift had needed to see it firsthand to realize what was now so clear to him. The symbolic murder had to take place not here, but up on the stage itself. That would be best for the audience. And the audience was everything, wasn't it? At 8 minutes, the theater went dim, then black. The synthesizer music swelled, and a heavily brocaded curtain rose slowly. A wash of red light hit the stage, enough to send a collateral haze over the audience, where seat 11A was now empty. Dr. Xander Swift had seen all that he needed to see for tonight, so he had left the theater. The murder was on, for tomorrow. Tonight was only a rehearsal, a walkthrough. He wanted to play to a full house, after all. That was a requirement. All in his honor, of course.
Chapter 23. The next day's violent crimes meeting had only one very important agenda item, at least from my point of view. Bree asked me to sit in, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to be there. The meeting was heavily attended, standing room only, and the place was buzzing with hot rumors. Captain Thor Richter held up the start for the arrival of the deputy mayor, who was 20 minutes late, and who spoke not a word the whole time he was there. The fact that Larry Dalton attended, however, sent a clear message on this one. Everyone's watching the case. This was just what the maniac killer seemed to want, but it couldn't be helped. No way could we disinvite the deputy mayor. Bree started off by telling the group everything she and I had recently established. Our late-night stint with Felix Bender had yielded a few more Abu Ghraib images, but nothing else of real substance. Still, it was a good start, I thought. I assumed the killer had left it as a message for us. Or me? So then we opened our lens a little wider, for derivative elements elsewhere, Bree said, and brought up a PowerPoint slide.